Emily. Welcome to Behind the Tab. So excited to have you here today.
Thanks so much.
So before we get started, can you just kind of give us your background and how you got into the event technology space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually came from the operational hospitality side. So I started off in off-premise catering. So for anybody who has ever lived that life, I see you. I feel for you. It is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I actually felt like that was a great starting point for me because it took me everywhere else I went. After that, I actually ran the weddings department for at the Art Institute of Chicago. So I spent quite a few years really honing those skills of how to manage and plan weddings, but in a cultural institution that it is not the mission or the primary focus of that institution. It's about the art and not as much about hosting events. So that has its, challenges. And then I decided I wanted my life to be a little bit easier in the events game. So I went to the Four Seasons Hotel for quite a few years.
Oh, that was easier.
Uh, it's the land of yes. You go from a cultural institution that you can't go here, you can't touch that, no food and beverage here, don't step over this line to, I would always argue a luxury hotel is come on in, you can do whatever you want to do, and anything you want will make it happen. And then I moved on to the Viceroy Hotel in Chicago. I was the director of catering and was kind of like poached from Four Seasons to run Viceroy for Boca Restaurant Group, which is a pretty well established group in the city of Chicago, has multiple properties with under its umbrella. And so I started off as running that hotel and the events there and the catering team. But then it kind of evolved into I was running events for the entire group that were operating in hotels. So Hoxton Hotel Chicago, Hotel Zachary, like anything that was happening at those properties, I was kind of overseeing. And then the pandemic happened and changed the scope of in-person events for everyone. Um, but I always, my big joke is that I was using Tripleseat with Boca. It was the first time I'd used it in my long tenured career in food and beverage. I'd used all kinds of other systems before. And when I started using Tripleseat with Boca, I said, where has this been my entire career? What have I been doing? This system is a game changer. And so when the pandemic happened and the scope of events, live in-person events changed, and we had to, adjust to a virtual experience, I'd been in hospitality for a long time, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And I made the jump over to Tripleseat and SaaS and technology, and I love it. And I will probably never go back. I love
No,
it,
wow.
and
Oh
it's
man, you have such an impressive background. And I
okay.
always marvel at event people because you are able to keep control even when everything's just kind of blowing up around you. I just love that about event people.
Well, thank you. I always joke that a lot of people just in life spend their time if a problem arises, why did this happen, where did this go wrong? And I come from the mindset, and I think this is like a forte for events people, is I don't care, let's move, like let's find the solution and keep going, because we're full steam ahead in this event and I don't have time to figure out why it went wrong. Let's just fix it
Yeah.
and move on. It's definitely a trait that you have to have in order
A
to
hundred
operate
percent. My
that.
and I'll just say quickly, my first set of jobs was in nonprofit, and for nonprofit, events are like a huge part. It is
Yeah.
like the most stressful thing. There's so much money involved, so many emotions. It
hmm
can be very fraught. So if you can learn how to live in that world, you've accomplished some things. You probably got your whole life together.
I say that there's going to be a day when I'm not in this industry at all, and I can write a wonderful book about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there'll be a lot to say.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. All right, so let's move into. So you guys are a silver sponsor of the Future of Food Halls conference. We're so excited to have you to be a
We're
part
so
of it.
excited to come.
And so this conversation is all about like that panel and talking about food halls and events in food halls. So Just from your standpoint at Triple Seat, what do you think makes events at food halls different than your traditional event?
Yeah. I Everyone is always looking for an out of the box experience. What's different than what you did last time? And, we're actually living in a time now that it's all about activation, activation, activation. What are we doing? What's the experience? And, that's the food halls, like this is the epitome of what they do, is that it is not a traditional property. It's not a seated dinner for 20 that I've done a million times in a private dining room at a restaurant. It's not a hotel ballroom banquet space. And I really think that you even see that restaurant and hotels actually often try to mimic and mirror what food halls are doing, because you have their customers want these out of the box experiences. And it's like, okay, great. Well, you want movement and you want different food. So let's do different food stations and let's dress up those food stations and spend a lot of time and money on props and branding. And so we can kind of make this station feel like its own entity. And it's like, well, really, that's you're just trying to make like a food hall in that event space. So I would argue go to the food hall that does it best and let, these different stalls and give your customers that out of the box experience there. Because that's what they do.
Oh man, that's really something. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it's so true. That's a really different way of kind of thinking about what like every food hall is basically an experience creation engine, like,
Yeah.
that and they think about it that way. So that's really
Yes,
cool. All right.
absolutely.
Okay, so when you think about how they generally approach activating their spaces, what are you seeing as their biggest operational challenges?
You know, I think there's a few logistical and operation challenges that you can kind of start like at the small level, and then we can talk about big level. But like the small level, I would say is that you do have to account for each of the stalls still having their own branding, and they can really kind of function as their own separate operation. And so when you're wanting to have a cohesive event, you've got to look at like what's the agenda of each of these stalls. And then, operationally, some of them might all have the same POS and logistical operation system, and some of them might be utilizing different systems. And so to kind of try to like put it all together for one event, I know that that can be an operational challenge. I think when you look like zoom out and look big picture, some of the operational challenges become about how are we looking at this event as a revenue engine for the property as a whole. So when you think about, well, so let's go back to like a restaurant, and I have a private dining room. This is like a very clear cut sectioned off space that yes, the restaurant can still run and the event can still run and feel like it's totally itself because it's in a private space. Food halls tend to not necessarily have like reserved private spaces because that's kind of the appeal, is that it's open and you can move around and there's different experiences. And I think that when you're trying to operate an event in tandem with being open for your general diners, it can feel the event can feel maybe not as special or as that it's its own entity. The general patrons can kind of feel like they're either impeding on something or that they're not as important because this event is happening. And from a revenue standpoint, it has to make sense to say, okay, this event is going to bring us this many dollars to be able to close to anybody else coming in. And that's, restaurants have to do that all the time. They have to determine if there's going to be a buyout. So like this is in terms of F&B, when you're looking at potential revenue coming in, you've got to look at the metrics of what makes sense. But I think that there can be times that the operators themselves might not see the event as this revenue generating piece and kind of miss the boat on, well, they should have their own private space, quote unquote, or we should make them feel like this is special and just for them to make sure that that event seems and feels cohesive. And I know that those are internal conversations and challenges that come up
Yeah.
constantly about
Yeah.
how are we selling? Why are we selling? Are
Yeah.
we taking this piece of business? Is this the right fit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want the money? Do you not want the money?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. So if you have to think about in your experience, can you think of any operators that are doing it well, like examples of a food hall that's done it well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely have, some customers that I think have figured it out. And I would argue, most of them have figured it out, but I think, our account management team, I kind of like pull them and get a pulse of like, hey, who are the best operators? And like Arcade Food Hall in London is a great customer of ours that I think they feel like they've just had a lot of success in how and how they operationally approach their property. I would also say front burner would be one as well. So I mean, and I think that any of our customers like they've all figured it out for what works best for them. But there are definitely some that just kind of like get it. And I think that that comes from like the top down of like getting how events can be that revenue generator for them.
Yeah, and so I guess if you think about it, when we say I get it, is that they do them more consistently, or they do them at a higher level of profit, or their merchants are happier or on board with it? Are you thinking about those as examples of getting it?
I think of it as getting it as like they see the value that the dollar of the event will bring. And so maybe it is just being strategic and saying like maybe we don't want to do this as a buyout on a Friday or Saturday. We have too much like foot traffic. But yeah, Thursday's a heavy foot traffic day for us, but this could be a great piece of business. And that piece of business could come back next year at this exact same time. We could sign this as a 2-year deal because maybe this conference is happening, this year and next year in town, whatever that looks like. But I think from a get it standpoint of they get that the events are going to drive guaranteed revenue that they might not have if the weather is bad that day, they might not have that foot traffic that they think is going to come in. And I'd rather take that guaranteed revenue. And so I think the operators that support that and let their sales team make those decisions because they think that it's a qualified piece of business, are the ones that, in my opinion, are really, really maximizing their property.
Yeah, I can't, we don't have time to get into it today, but I'm really excited to hear your panel and to hear how your platform is helping them do that, like
Yeah.
make those strategic decisions and have the data that they need to actually make the trade-offs or whatever. So yeah, I'm really excited about hearing about that. All right.
Yeah.
So put your developer hat. Imagine that you are developing a new property. What do you think they need to think about from day one to make sure that they are able to execute really, really well-run events?
Yeah. Logistical flow, logistical flow, logistical flow. Like I cannot say it enough. That is the key to any event, but especially in properties like this, is where could my guests potentially bottleneck a stall? Where could there be a bottleneck to get through to get from one stall to another stall? There's going to be lines. Like we know that. An event, especially if you're talking, 100 people, 150 people, 200 people, how do you feed them all at once? Even if they're coming in staggered, even if they're coming in on a flow. I mean, you're going to have multiple people at any given time. And people know that they're going to have to wait, but people are not happy when they have to wait. So thinking about does that mean that maybe this stall we know is going to be the most popular? So maybe there's a satellite opportunity available somewhere around. So like yes, I understand that it might not function during the day when we're operating as, to general patrons, but is there somewhere that allows us for satellite operations to move around the space? Um, as I'm thinking about where my seating is and like how many tables I have or places for people to stand or sit, is there enough movement around them so that I can get from one stall to a next, but then find my place that I want to stand? And is that line going to back up into people? Because people want their personal space. So
Hmm.
logistical flow from the like end guest experience, and then logistical flow for your actual like operational experience too. Do I have enough space in my stall to be pumping out enough food for however many people we might have at any given time? So if that's like, to me, logistical flow is always my number one. And then I think cohesiveness of what that full experience looks like. Because I do think that it can be hard when you've got, from an event perspective, multiple floors. Maybe there are kind of like separated rooms. And again, if I'm thinking about from an event perspective, that can then feel like, well, part of the event's in one room and part of the event's in another room, or part of the event is upstairs and part of it is downstairs. And it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily always feel like it flows together, and you feel like you kind of lose people. So while multi levels can feel, to from a general patron perspective, oh, it's cool, I go to this floor and this floor. When you think about the event, maybe the event doesn't need to have all the floors. The event might just need to have one. And that to me is like, from a developer standpoint, when we want this guaranteed revenue, what does that experience look like from the event coming in to when they leave?
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like the best event planners visualize everything. So it's like you have an idea of what the event's going to look like
Yeah.
before you even put pen to paper. You're thinking like, what would the flow look like? I get it,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just teeing up our panel topic, one roof, many concepts.
Yeah.
Tell me one myth that people have about food hall events that is just like, we just want to debunk it.
Yeah. Well, I think as I'm saying that about the flow and how how operators and developers should build from the get-go, I do think that the concept, or that the myth, is that my event will be disjointed. And so therefore I might go to the hotel ballroom because we're all in one space, and like we can make stations feel like food halls, right? And stalls. So I think that the myth is that it's going to be too disjointed. It's not going to feel like one cohesive event. So, no, that's not where we're going to go. And I do think that our operators know how to make it feel cohesive. And I am excited to talk to them about how they've overcome those obstacles in the sales process, and some of the success stories of some of the larger events. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be large. Some of the smaller scale events too, that have made that flow feel like it worked, pretty seamlessly for their customers and guests.
Awesome. All right. Well, I know our time is short. Just want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. For those who are listening and want to learn about you, about Triple Seat,
Yeah.
what should they do?
So, again, I'm Emily Young. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Tripleseat. So please find us at tripleseat.com, as well as we're on all social outlets. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you get to me, I can get you to the place that you need to go. We have a large sales team if you're wanting to join Tripleseat. We have an incredible support team for any of our existing customers. And the thing I'll always say is the majority of people that are at Tripleseat came from the hospitality side. So if you yourself are an operator or a sales manager or anybody, managing any sort of events, pretty much everybody on the Tripleseat side has done that at one point of their career as well. And so we really understand what your process is. And that is Tripleseat's job, is to help with the logistical pieces of creating your event, contracting your event, the banquet event orders, the whole from start to finish of how that event flows. So we're here to help.
Okay, and they can always meet you at the Future of Food Halls on
Yes,
April 15th at the Market and Malcolm Yards in Minneapolis.
exactly. My team will be there. I will be there. We are excited to chat with you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily.
Awesome. Thanks, Patricia.
All right, you have a great day.
You too.
All right.